fellow geeks. Welcome to Geeking Out, the podcast about all geeky aspects of software delivery, DevOps, observability, reliability, and everything in between. I'm your host, Adriana Vilela, coming to you from Toronto, Canada. And geeking out with me today, I have Eromosele Akhigbe. Welcome, Eromosele.
Thank you, Adriana, for this opportunity. It's so nice to be here. And nice to
I'm
see
so
you.
happy to have you on.
Thank you so much, Adriana. Yeah.
Okay, so where are you calling from today?
Yeah, I'm coming from Lagos, Nigeria. So Nigeria, for some of you that don't know, is in Africa, is located at the western part of Africa. So yeah, that's where I'm calling from.
That is
Nigeria.
so cool. That's awesome. It's
Thank you.
interesting. I've had two people from Morocco on my podcast, but when I had them, they weren't in Morocco. So you are my first
Africa?
person from Africa who's living
Oh,
in Africa on the podcast. This is super exciting. Okay, so I have so much to get into, but before we do that, we are going to start with the icebreaker questions. Are you ready? Okay, first question: are you left-handed or right-handed?
right. Right-handed.
Okay. Next question: do you prefer iPhone or Android?
iPhone any day.
Okay. Next question: do you prefer Mac, Linux, or Windows?
Mac. I'm currently using a Mac. No to Windows. I do not like Windows at all. Yeah, I'm a Mac user.
Did you? Okay, here's a question for you. Did you ever use Windows before? Because it's funny. I've talked to
Yes.
some people who are like, I've never even used Windows. I'm a Mac user through and
Now
through.
I've used like Windows when I started my tech career, and it was the experience wasn't the best.
Yeah, I also, for listeners of the podcast, they probably know, they've heard me talk about this so many times, but also like I started my life with Windows, my tech life. Okay, next question. Do you have a favorite programming language?
Yes, I do, and it's Golang. And I also have
Ooh.
a not so favorite programming language, although you did not ask, which is Java. I'm not a fan of Java. I'm not a crazy fan of Java because of my
Okay, I will.
experience. My experience with Java was the first programming language because I was always intrigued by programming since I was in secondary school. So I was intrigued, but I didn't have the resource to learn at that time.
Yeah.
So I always disturbed my dad, and then one time he brought one IT guy from his company, and the guy came, and I think then I started learning how to use the terminal, and I learned how to change password using admin. I started learning about admin stuff. I was a very curious kid, so and I told the guy that I can hack your laptop, and the guy didn't believe because he was an IT professional, and I'm a young kid,
Yeah, yeah.
and he was like, "I dare you to," and I did it, and he was shocked. I told him that okay, I'm really interested in programming. I would like to learn, and I believe strongly that it's because of what I did and because I embarrassed him. He decided that the best language for me to start with was Java.
So was that punishment?
Like he gave me, I'll say, the worst tutorials I've ever watched, and trying it, I thought I was just a dumb person. I couldn't just like, because how will you just to type "hello world" public main stat, it sounded so scary and crazy to me. So I just decided that maybe programming wasn't my thing. When I heard my friends talk about JavaScript, I was like, wait, if Java is this hard, the script of Java would. So I just ran away from programming.
Oh wow,
I
so that
thought,
turned you off initially.
yeah, for
Can
like
you
4 years.
imagine if you'd been like completely put off by it? Like how different your life would have been? How did you end up learning Go?
Yeah, so very interesting story. Yeah, so in 2022, I was on my because in my I was in uni and we are having like some kind of internship. By the way, I studied mechanical engineering, so I didn't study software engineering at all because I ran away from code. I was scared of code.
Oh my
So
god, dude, I like ran away from code in university too. I was like, I don't want to do this for a living. And then like in university, they freaking teach you how to code, and you're like, damn it.
yeah, There's no
Yeah, my
escaping.
my degree is in industrial engineering, so I
That's
don't
really
I don't have a computer science or computer engineering degree either. So there you go. Anyway, carry on.
So we had an internship, and during that time, I had a really good friend of mine. Shout out to him, by the way. His name is Isaac, and he just encouraged me that okay, you don't want to program, why not try DevOps? And I
Mm,
was like, okay, DevOps. I was like, okay, sounds cool. Let me try. Let me give it a try. And during that time, I started learning DevOps. But the school I went to, guess what? They started teaching us JavaScript first. And I was like, what? I'm back to programming again. And I was so scared at first, but then I now realized that wait a second, it's not that deep. It's actually easy. It's not hard, to code. And I was saying that my passion for coding, started, brimming again. But then I
yeah,
had to stop it because I went for my final year and I couldn't balance programming and final year projects, and things like that. So I had to put a
yeah, yeah.
pause. And then December 2023, I decided to pick it up again. I started learning DevOps, and I got this really nice course from Moon. Man, I can't pronounce his name, but Abhishek, something like that. He's a really good
Mhm.
guy at Udemy. Then my choice, my turning point was Outreachy. I don't know if you've heard about Outreachy, Adriana.
I have, but for folks who aren't familiar with it,
Yeah,
tell our
yeah.
audience about Outreachy. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So Outreach basically is like an initiative to encourage people that are in underrepresented communities, to get into open source and open science. So it's not just for tech guys, also for science people. Like they have some projects about biomes, microbiomes and things around that. So I, sure. Backstory: when I wanted to apply for Outreach, I was like, bro, nobody's ever gonna pick me. But the beautiful thing about Outreach is that it's not based on experience. Like you don't have to have a nice resume or like 20 years of experience or 3 years of working experience. In fact, it's an internship and it's really, really nice. Man, kudos to the people that are pushing it. I applied for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I applied for it and I got it. I got into the first phase, and that's how I got connected to the Open Telemetry community. Yay!
Outreachy is not like, I know there's a lot of outreachy people involved with CNCF, but outreach is not necessarily a program of the CNCF. It's one that the CNCF is involved with. Is that correct?
Yeah. So how Outreachy works is that Outreachy, accept. So if you CNCF as an organization can decide to sponsor and intend to work in an open source project. So that's how it
Ah,
works. And
cool.
usually they have open telemetry, so just have little tasks that someone that is new can come in and do, and gain experience with the CNCF community. So it's really, really nice. I think they also have LFX mentorship, something like that. So it's a similar kind of structure. So
Nice.
that's how I got to meet Jurasi and Yuri. Really awesome. They were awesome, awesome mentors. And I had to start learning Go because to contribute, yeah. So I was forced to learn Go because to contribute to Open Telemetry is written in Go. Most part of it, except the SDKs, is written in Go.
Yes.
So I had to start learning Go from scratch. I had to learn about Open Telemetry. When I read so many, I don't know if you can remember, but I read so many of your blogs at that time to like ramp up on Open Telemetry. Even
Oh my
Henrik,
God.
yeah, even Henrik, his videos were so. Is it observable that YouTube channel? His videos were so helpful because at that
Yeah.
time there
Henrik has
was
great
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, really, really nice, really relatable, really practical, and stuff. So because those content was what helped me to ramp up my knowledge of input telemetry, and through that knowledge, I was also able to speak in a conference, my first tech conference. I was both a speaker and an attendee. Really interested.
Oh my
Really nice.
God. That's
Yeah,
so cool. That's so
yeah,
cool. I love that. And this is why like these types of programs are so
yeah,
important to
yeah, yeah,
get people, who normally wouldn't necessarily like be in these open source communities. Like you basically discovered that you liked this stuff because of Outreachy. This is so
yeah.
great.
Yeah, it's really nice. And then got to work with Yuri directly. Yuri was an amazing person. He was very patient with me because he understood where I was coming from. That I came from a
Yeah.
non-tech background,
Yeah.
and I was able to finally get the project done after a while, and yeah, started working with Sematext. You know, Sematext is an observability company based in the US. Like Datadog and like the popular Dynatrace. So
Hmm.
it's a observability firm integrating OpenTelemetry. Building an exporter for them. It's already in process. So I think that's a very brief, very, very brief. And yeah, also through the things I did in Open Telemetry, I also got sponsored to Open Source Summits, which I couldn't come because of my visa. But then
Oh,
I
I'm
got
so sad. I remember you telling me. Boo. Yeah, it was the open source summit in Europe that
EU.
took place in Vienna,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Last
yeah, at
last
Vienna.
fall.
Yeah, at
Oh,
Vienna.
that's too bad. That's too bad. I hope you someday get to visit Vienna because it's such a beautiful city.
I hope so too. And then got the sponsorship to KubeCon, where I met amazing people like you. Finally, in person, I met so many people that I had looked up to in the open telemetry space and reading their content. And it was a wholesome experience. I'm still trying to recover from the full experience. Once again, thank you so much for being such an awesome person. Yeah.
Oh my God, like seriously, it's, like such a pleasure to get to meet you. And yeah, we hung out a bunch at Geek Out North America. And I love
Yeah.
how you're just like, it's so hard for those who watch the show who've never been to a KubeCon. It is a massive conference, it is overwhelming. And if you've never been before, that means you don't really know anybody. And so for you to like go and introduce yourself, like it takes like so much like courage, I think, to like put yourself out there, like, and I think it's so important to be able to do that stuff because it gives you an opportunity to connect with really cool people. And I'm so glad we got to connect, and then we got to hang out a little extra too at Sigbobo, which
Yeah.
was tons of fun. It was such a blast. Yeah, I'm glad we got to meet. And then I had you interview for Humans of Otel, and then I'm like, hey, you should be on my podcast because I think you have some cool stuff to say. Okay, I'm gonna continue with the icebreaker questions. I think I know the answer to this next one, but I might be wrong. Okay, do you prefer dev or ops?
Hmm. 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 Kind of hard. It's hard. Um, okay. I think I'll go with the dev. Because currently that's the part I really have a lot of experience in currently. But we're gonna definitely have another conversation about DevRel. DevRel kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
looking. I'm looking into that space and all. So I'm definitely gonna get
Nice.
pointers.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Next question. Do you prefer JSON or YAML?
YAML. YAML.
I am with you.
Definitely YAML. I don't know, maybe because of my bias, because of OpenTelemetry, I was exposed to a lot of YAML. I remember the first time I got to write YAML, I was like, what's the problem with the indentations?
I know. I know. Like so many people are like, I prefer JSON because I hate the indentation for YAML. I understand. The indentation for YAML will like sometimes drive you crazy. Fine. But
But
like it's so
yeah,
much
but
cleaner.
yeah, they're like when you get used to it, it just makes so much sense, like
Yeah.
structure and all that. So yeah,
I
definitely
also
YAML.
hate curly braces because of Java.
Yeah, man,
There's like so many curly braces in Java. I'm like,
everywhere, everywhere. But fun fact, last year I decided to face my fear and I actually went to a software engineering school and I learned Java
nice,
just,
nice.
just to face my fear. But I'm not writing Java.
It's been a really long time now since I've last touched Java. I think the last time I want to say 2018. But
Oof,
every time I touch Java,
yeah.
it's like I have to reteach myself how to set up
Yeah.
the GM on my machine because I always forget and something always goes wrong. And then there's like another JVM that got installed on my machine from some other thing that I needed. And now like the JVMs are fighting with each other. And then
J-
you add Eclipse onto that. And then it's fighting with the JVM that's installed on your machine along like if it got installed with another JVM, like I'm just like,
Java is too strict. It's too strict. Like once you miss one thing, everything fails.
my thing with Java, like my main issue, and I'm told that it's gotten better, is
Yeah.
I find it very verbose. So like you need to like code the getters and the setters
Checkers.
and
Ah,
like
what's
everything is a class, and so you want to
yeah.
do the most mundane thing and you still have to create a class, and it's like but I am told that things have gotten more concise. Also, this is on my like to learn list, but I'm told that Kotlin is like basically if Java were retooled, that would be its beautiful baby.
Are you
Um,
really? Are you serious?
yeah. It's a JVM based language, but it's like way more concise and cleaner than Java. So it's like Java improved. So anyway,
That sounds cool.
and I know a few people who've tried out Kotlin and really like it. So
But isn't that like for Android or something?
yeah, I believe so. I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is used a lot in Android. So anyway, fun fact. Okay.
Yeah.
Next question. Do you prefer spaces or tabs?
Um, hmm, hmm. I would say I would say spaces because apparently there's some like I think if you want to write config, if you want to write YAML files, you're not allowed to use tabs. Like there's always this kind of weird error that happens when you use tabs. So I prefer spaces. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
also
did convert to spaces because of that. But like my tab in VS Code is configured so that it converts it to a space. So I still use the tab key
are
because
you
space.
serious? How
Yeah,
you know you better teach me how to do that.
I
Maybe
gotta I gotta look at that setting. I'll see if I can find it and send it to you after. But yeah, that was miraculous for me. I'm like, ooh, hey.
that would be so helpful. Yeah, that would be so helpful. Really helpful.
Yeah, I don't like, space, 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 like tab key, get the job done. So I guess maybe I'm a hybrid. I'm like, I use spaces, but with the tab key.
Makes sense.
There you go. Okay, two more questions. Do you prefer to consume content through video or text?
Actually, this so when I want to first, understand a content, I first go to video because sometimes text can be very overwhelming to me. So I first go to video, maybe watch two or three videos, have a general overview of what the technology or topic is about. Then I now go down to the documentation and text. Recently I was going through the OpenTelemetry docs, and I remember when I started like 1 year ago, because like 1 year ago that I started learning about OpenTelemetry, almost a year right now. I was so overwhelmed by the documentation. It looked so scary. I didn't know where to start. I started hearing a lot of things, traces, spans, metrics. I'm like, what's going on? My savior was YouTube. I went to Henrik, and I started reading some things, and some things started making sense. Context propagation started making sense. I watched some talks, some formal open telemetry talks.
Yeah.
Then I started getting comfortable with it. I went through your blog, you know, read some things that, and it started adding up. Then finally, I went to documentation. So I'll say video first, then text. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
nice, nice.
what I
So they
learned.
complement each other, but your go-to for starters is video.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, I have to say, like I'm the opposite. I'm text until I hit the point of desperation and I can't find anything as a blog post. Then it's like, okay, fine, I'll watch a video. And I have to say, like, there was a talk that I did at KubeCon. I want to say maybe last year. It was on the target allocator, and I was like trying to learn some stuff and I could not find any materials on it. And then I found a video that Henrik had done, and I'm like, thank you, Henrik. Thank
Finally.
you. with like I think there was like a sample repo too. I'm like, thank you, Henrik.
Oops.
I finally figured this out. Yeah, because like the docs for the target allocator and for the hotel operator were a little they needed a little bit of improvement. And so like one of the things that I did personally, like after I learned this stuff, I'm like, I'm gonna go now into the readmes and the docs and like and share my knowledge
Yeah, that's
to make it
nice.
easier because it's I think like I love the hotel operator. It's like one of my favorite components of
Yeah,
OpenTelemetry,
yeah,
but it's like it's difficult to understand, right?
yeah,
And until you play with it, you don't realize how magical it is. But like it's you got to get past the documentation. So like making the docs accessible is important.
yeah. And what you're saying just shows the power of content, like content creation is so powerful. Like
It is.
after my whole journey with open telemetry, I decided to write two blog posts that I told you to review. And I think I remember that time I told you to give your suggestions, and you gave really really nice suggestions then at that time. But yeah, so the power of content. And through those blog posts, I know a lot of people that have texted me privately and told me that, oh, my blog post, on how to run the open telemetry demo, helped them get started with open telemetry, and it really helped them, you know, than getting so overwhelmed with all the
Yeah,
information.
yeah.
So creating content is so so important. Just helps you to learn more, and then it also helps the community. The new,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and
really,
I think that's like such an important point because, like, I don't know about you. Like, you mentioned, like, it does help you, it helps the community, but um, for me, it's so helpful to like if I can recreate my steps and then write about it. Because especially like sometimes I write blog posts very selfishly because I'm like I need it documented somewhere. And I've actually gone back to previous blog posts. I'm like, I know I wrote about this. How the hell do you do this again? I don't remember. So it's
yeah,
like an archive of my knowledge stored in the interwebs. Um, but my thought process too is like if I'm struggling, someone else is struggling
yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah,
And you know, sometimes I think like, oh, should I write about this because someone else wrote about it too? Well, you know what? Doesn't hurt. Write about it. You never know who it's going to help. You might have
yeah,
a slightly different take that someone else doesn't have, or like you're writing with like more up to date, you're using like a more up to date version of that tool. So now your stuff is like probably more relevant than something like a blog post from like 5 years ago.
yeah.
Sad but true, right? Because tech evolves. So yeah, I agree with you. Creating that content is so important, and don't be shy. Don't be shy about creating the content, like just like you do. Like you've seen the benefits of
Yeah.
what you're doing. I think that's so amazing. So
Yeah,
good
it's just
on
that.
you.
Yeah, it's just like nowadays it's so hard to balance the two, like walking and writing, because writing takes a lot of effort because you have to
Oh my
sit down,
God.
you have to
True.
distill your ideas, you have to think about how the audience sees things, you have to explain things well so that people don't get lost. So, but
Yeah.
it's something that I'm planning to get back into once I get my groove back on.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. That's awesome. I will say like one thing that really helps with writing, like I remember before I got into developer advocacy,
yeah,
I was managing a couple of teams, and I remember when I interviewed for that job, I made sure that like writing blog posts was built into my job because
that's
I think that
cool.
it's a lot of work,
Yeah,
it's like contributing to open source projects.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yay, awesome if you do it on your free time, but let's face it, contributing to an open source project can be like a full-time job in itself. And I don't know about you, but with my free time, I kind of want to do something completely
different.
unrelated
Yeah,
to what I do during the day, right? So I think being in a job where you're afforded the ability to contribute to open source projects, to contribute to community knowledge, even if your role isn't, specifically a developer advocacy role,
yeah,
because I think those community contributions matter and are important.
yeah. Really, really important.
Awesome. Okay, we're down to the final question of
Ah,
of the icebreaker.
okay.
Okay, what is your superpower?
Hmm. Okay, you probably know this. Paul. My superpower is the ability to relate with people. Yeah.
I can vouch for that. I can vouch for that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
Yeah.
no, seriously, like you come across as like so chill and just like so friendly and willing to learn. And yeah, I think like you're super approachable. And I think, like I'm actually kind of an introverted person.
Ah.
So I'm not the
No,
type of person who's going to be
you
like
don't seem
approaching
like you don't
people.
seem
I am for real introverted, and so like conferences, like I've been lucky that at subsequent KubeCons I've like met more and more people, so I have like a bunch of conference friends.
yeah.
But my first KubeCon, I was like, oh my god, just like let me stand in a corner and hide from everybody, because I think sometimes it's really hard to approach people, and so when an extroverted person comes and starts talking to me and I get like a nice chill vibe from them, it's like I've heard it referred to as like when an extroverted person adopts you. I feel in some ways like you adopted me at KubeCon as well, like because your friendliness, like you were so approachable. I'm like, yeah, yeah, we can chill. I think extroverted people putting introverted people at ease, I think makes us seem extroverted as a result.
You know what actually helps me is I know one thing that if I'm nervous, the other person is nervous too. Like we are both
Yeah,
nervous. Like someone has to take the first step. So and the worst that can happen is the person says, I don't want to speak, and then you move on. But the best that
yeah,
can happen is, relationships that, can be bigger than, what it was at that time.
it's
So
so
I would
true.
say the upside is always the reward is better than the risk. So I always go for the reward. But don't get me wrong, when I got to KubeCon, I was first terrified. First of all, that was my first time outside Nigeria, so it was a full experience for me, full experience, full new experience for me. But I had a Colombian friend. We shared a room together. His name is
Nice.
Daniel Cifuentes, really nice guy, and I'll say he helped me to ease into the whole relating with new people. And then
Oh,
I
that's
met
great.
you. I can't meet my heroes and not speak to them. No, that's not possible. So I had to, approach you. And I think we kept
We
meeting each
kept
other.
bumping into each other. I know, like when I invited you to come for Sig Boba, I was heading out with Marino, who's a
Yeah,
past guest on the podcast,
yeah.
and and yeah, you were like finishing up for your day. You're like, hey, how's it going? I'm like, hey, we're going to Sig Boba. Want to come with? It's like, what the heck? Why not? I'm also a lot more likely to go for these after events if it's like rather than saying like, oh, let's meet at the venue. If we all
Yeah.
go together, I'm like, okay, I'll go because otherwise I'll be like, it's the end of the
Hello.
day. I don't want to meet up with people there. I'm just gonna go back to my hotel room and just like watch Netflix. Because yeah, otherwise I'd be hiding out. So I'm glad you joined and it was like lots of fun. Plus like bubble
So
tea is
nice.
amazing. That's cool. Yeah, so we got through the icebreaker questions. Hooray, congratulations. So like open telemetry has been an overarching topic
Yeah.
of our conversation. And you said that you got into it through
Outreach.
Outreachy. And so was it because of your work in open telemetry that you ended up getting like your outreachy work in open telemetry that you ended up getting your job at Semitext?
Oh yeah. So, the I had worked on the collector, before, and because of the conference I had to learn so much about the collector. It's
Uh-huh.
something that Josh used to say, conference inspired learning or something like that. So because of I didn't want to fall, so I had to go and learn so much about the collector, and
Yeah.
yeah, so I was able to, show Sematext at that time that it is possible to auto instrument an application without adding code,
Yeah.
and that was really, mind blowing. So they employed me because of that, because I had that skill and I could
Nice.
yeah, I had I could I had not done this before, But another superpower I have is that I have the ability to learn fast. If it's structured, I can learn very fast and I can grab things easily. So I had not built an exporter before,
Yeah.
but I looked through a lot of code, other exporter code, was able to find
Yeah.
some patterns and similarities. And I was like, yeah, I can build an exporter for text and connect it to OpenTelemetry. And they were like, okay, come on board and let's do that. So yeah, so that's how I
Oh,
got.
yeah. That's amazing. And, that is a great superpower. And I think this is the superpower that really differentiates, the awesome people from the not so awesome people in tech. Because, like, look, let's face it, you can't be on top of every new technology that's
Yeah,
out there ever, right? And so you pick a technology that resonates with you, and then you learn it. Like, the stuff that I did when I finished university, so different from what I do now.
yeah.
And, like, and I learned open telemetry on the fly for a job as well. When I was
Wow.
managing a team, an observability practices team, and I was trying to get the company to use open telemetry, and I'm like, I don't know that much about observability, I don't know that much about open telemetry, let me learn about it. So I learned about it on the fly too, right? Because you got to do that. You got to learn fast. You become the expert, as quickly as you can learn. Sometimes it means, like, not learning, maybe not necessarily fully in depth at first, right? But
Yeah,
it's like learning enough, and then you can start asking questions and being curious and be like, oh, how does this work, how does that work? And I think what you said also about, like, you never wrote an exporter, but you look through the code and you look for patterns. And I think, like, that's what we have to do as software engineers, is we
yeah,
look for the patterns. It's like learning a new language, right? Like,
yeah.
you learn Java, you learn JavaScript, you learn Go. They're different languages, different syntax, they have different paradigms, but also they have some similarities. And
Yeah.
so you, like, draw on your experience with, like, one language to sort of, like, get through learning the other language, which is cool.
Yeah. So nice.
Yeah. So, what's as someone who's been involved in open telemetry
Yeah.
for the last little while, you mentioned, like, the different resources, for open telemetry that you've relied on. What about, how would you say, like, your experience with the open telemetry community has been? Because that's always, like, something that I love about open telemetry, is the community. So what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I'll say my experience with the community was and has been still great. I can mention his name, Dimitri. He was so helpful during my internship because most times the issues that I'll have to solve, he will be the one reviewing those the PRs, and then he was always like giving me tips and pointers. Okay,
Oh,
try this.
nice.
Yeah, try this, go like this, and he really helped me, in getting my first PR merged. I remember when my first PR got merged, I was like, what? I felt
It's
so
like a
excited.
party, right?
I was like, wow. So I contributed to open source, and it was just really an exhilarating feeling, knowing that
Yeah.
someone like me that had like a month ago, I had no knowledge of Go, no knowledge of open
Yeah.
telemetry, and then 2 weeks, 3 weeks after, I made my first contribution. So like I always advise people, even in my community, I advise people that don't be scared, because what stops a lot of people from contributing to open source is they feel like, oh, I have to be like a senior engineer, I have to
Yes.
know everything, I have to be so good, 20 years experience, nobody will care about what I have to do. Well, it is not really true, because the people in the community, first of all, are willing to help. Well, I can't speak about all communities, but Open Telemetry, for example,
Fair
they're
enough.
willing to.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're honest, you tell them that, oh, this is what I know, this is what I can do. Where can I start from? There's this thing called good first issues. They have good first
Yeah.
issues that are not so technical, that you can just start your journey from there. And I believe that once you get that first PR merged, there's this drive to do more.
It's
After I got
true.
my yeah, after I got my first PR merged, I doubled down. I doubled down on my learnings. I doubled
Yeah.
down on my goal, and I was able to get five other PRs merged before the main Outreachy.
Wow. That's awesome. So it inspired you. It kind of gave you that kind of boost, right?
Yeah,
Confidence boost,
yeah,
and inspiration to contribute more. That's great. And I so agree with you. Like getting your first PR merged is like, I don't know. If you've never experienced it, I hope like folks out there, I hope you get to experience it because there's nothing like it. And like I think you made a really important point too. Like, um, don't be shy about like what you think is worthy of contribution
yeah,
because it is open source and people always need help.
yeah.
And especially if you find something where there's a gap, so you've noticed something like there's thing in the documentation or like you noticed a bug or whatever, or as you said, you look through the issues list for a particular repo and see if there's something where you're like, I think I can do that.
Another thing like I would like to like speak about is, you know, like people like us. Like when I came for like one of the reasons that made me like apply for KubeCon and all was that I hadn't really seen a lot of, should I say, Nigerians living in Nigeria. Like I saw Nigerians there, but they were not living in Nigeria. Like they're America, Canada, but Nigerians living in Nigeria. I didn't really see so much representation,
Yeah.
from our community, and in our community, like the tech space is really booming. Kubernetes. I had a conversation with Jake. Jake is a CNCF ambassador. I'm sure you know him. Basically talking around topics around how to build and improve a community here in Nigeria and Africa at large, because there's so much that's currently happening here, but the access to the light, this everybody sees what's going on in the US. It's very easy to see what's going on in the US, what's going on in the
Yeah.
UK, but then places like Africa, like things are actually going on, but no one is really seeing what's happening. If no one knows what you're doing, then no one can call you for it. So
Yeah.
I those were one of the things that inspired me to actually apply for that sponsorship, to go to attend KubeCon, see how these things work and how can we
Yeah.
bring, this kind of thing to our own local community. Like I had spoke to Jake about, starting something like a KubeCon Africa.
How
I was
cool would that be? It's
really,
cool because I know there have been some KCDs in
yeah,
Africa.
Ghana and
And
Nigeria. Yeah,
that's so cool. That's so
yeah.
cool.
But there's
That's
so much work
amazing.
that can be done, in the whole, building the community space. And, you know, hopefully I'll get tips from people like you that are so good at this, building
Aw.
communities.
Hey, we learn from each other. I love
Yeah.
that so much. And yeah, I mean, I think it's really important. And this is a conversation that I've had with a few people too. Like even even stuff about like language barriers, right? That there's so much stuff, like so much open source contribution is done in English. And if you know English, great. If English is not your strong language, that it's like you're shutting your doors to like a bunch of brilliant people
Yeah.
where English is not their first language. And why should it be? I mean, you know, um, you're born in a different country. It's a
Very
different first
cool. Yeah.
language, right? So I think it's really cool that there's so much of an effort now that you see in the CNCF around like internationalization of documentation, like OpenTelemetry. I think the docs are now available in a number of languages, which is really cool. Even in Portuguese, I found out, and it's easy to forget. Like if you speak English relatively well, you just sort of like, yeah, of course. Like what about other people, so I think representation matters. Making people aware of other communities and other places that are not North America, not necessarily Western Europe. Like tech exists in all parts of the world, and I think
Yeah.
it's really important to bring that to the forefront. So I love what you're doing. I love that you're, the hustle is on and you're just like excited to learn and you're putting yourself out there. I think it's fantastic. And you're so young too. I love it.
Thank you, Adrian.
Well, we're coming up on time, but before we finish off, I wanted to ask if you have any parting words of wisdom.
Hmm. Well, to the well, I'm talking to newbies now, not to the experienced guys, but to the newbies out there, don't be scared to take that step, that first step, because that first step is what can change your life entirely. If I was scared to take, I was first scared to take the outreachy step, but I just told myself that what's the worst that can happen? They won't pick me. I won't, I'll still be fine, But what's the best that can happen? The best that can happen is that my life can, change forever. So everyone out there that is still scared to take that first step, maybe you want to start a company, you're having that idea, don't be scared to take that first step. Take that first step, and things will meet you on the way. And 2, 3 years down the line, you'll be happy you did. Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. I love that so much. And before we wrap up, there is one more thing that I want to mention because you got your start through Outreachy. Can you tell folks how it is that they can apply to Outreachy if they're interested and maybe just talk a little bit about the selection process?
Okay. Okay. Cool. So Outreachy has like two, I'll say two cohorts. So there's one that's currently happening in a few days, like it's starting in a few days, and they have another one in August. So they have two every year. So to apply to Outreachy, you have to write 5 essays. Yeah. So there's no in exam or anything. You just have to write 5 essays, and in those essays, you have to basically talk about how you are, you know, underrepresented in the location that you live in, how you have been underrepresented in the tech industry in the location that you live in, basically share your story, share how probably, for women, the whole issue around subjugation, from the society that they live in. For someone like me, so in our state, we are classified, people classify us as people that practice voodoo, you know, like witchcraft. So like most times, most of the wins that I had done when I was coming up, people just said, he's from that state. He's probably doing something on shady underneath, So it was really terrible. And the funny thing about on these things is that you may not even know you're going through these things. Like you may not even be aware because it might be so normal to you. Like for some
Yeah.
people, it's so normal to be talked down on, be talked
Yeah.
down. Yeah. So you have to actually sit down and think, because man, there are so many things that you don't know that you are currently facing that are not normal, that are very, very
Yeah.
abnormal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you can write those stories in and in 5 essays, and probably Andriana, maybe you can add the link to the application at
Oh yeah, yeah,
outreach.org.
yeah, absolutely. I'll include that in the show notes for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, awesome. So
Yeah.
write your story, and then if you get selected, woohoo, you got through the first phase. So there's a second phase. Now the second
Okay.
phase you have to pick an open source project, and I picked OpenTelemetry. I'm so happy I did. But
Did you just like randomly pick it, or was it something about it where you're like, this is something that interests me because of something you read?
yeah, yeah, So I would say I was led, I was led, and I was also very interested in, then I was learning DevOps, so I was
Yeah.
like, DevOps observability seems very familiar. So I'm like, okay, let's go for OpenTelemetry. And it seemed like the most familiar thing to me at that time.
Yeah.
And yeah, but there are many other projects. There's Wikimedia, there's uh, OCaml, really, really other awesome open source communities. So then you have to pick the project, and then you have to contribute to the project and you have to stand out, because most times you'll be competing with a lot of people. Like I was competing with like 59 other people, and
Damn.
don't be scared, because at first I was scared because the people I was competing with were like senior engineers, like they have been doing this for long, and I was like, oh my gosh, how will I get this done? But the mentors are not biased, they see effort. So they see that, okay, you put in so much effort, because someone that has been writing Go for the past 10 years, you know the effort I'll put in is not the same effort you put in, and they grade effort more than
Yeah.
experience, because what they want to do is they want to empower people. So once you get
Oh,
in, welcome to Outreachy. So that's how
that's
it works.
great. That's great. So I love that because, it's really, and I think this is what tech should be all about. It's not necessarily what skills do you have now. It's
Yeah,
like, what is your potential? And I
yeah,
think that's what it is. Like, I think we need to be able to invest in people based on their potential
yeah,
because otherwise you like miss out on awesome people, right?
yeah.
So that's great. Is the internship, is it a paid or unpaid internship?
What? It's paid $7,000.
Right on. That's amazing. I asked because like there's some internships where people are like working a lot and then it's like an unpaid internship.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. Feels like very worthwhile. And just to clarify, so you said you need to have done a contribution in the open source project that you selected. So, so like when you applied for Outreach, you had already done like an OTel contribution at that point.
No, I hadn't. I had no.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's just like as part of the internship. Like once you get selected,
Yeah, yeah,
you have to you have to fulfill that as a
yeah,
requirement of the program. Cool, cool. And then as part of Outreachy, then are you like, because like if I recall, like Jurasi, he was at Grafana before. Yuri was at Red Hat.
yeah,
Both awesome guys, by the way. I can totally vouch. And Jurasi was actually
yeah.
on the podcast before. And But so are you working then under the umbrella of OpenTelemetry or under the umbrella of like whatever company that like the outreach your kind of outreachy mentor is working at?
No, so I'm working under the umbrella of OpenTelemetry, but
Okay, okay.
they're like my mentors.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for explaining how the Outreachy program works. I think this is a really really cool opportunity, especially
Yeah.
for folks who are looking to get into open source and get some cool work experience. And yeah, it sounds like a great program. And Jurasi always talks about Outreachy, and now I understand why he's so
Yeah.
passionate about it. So this is truly truly amazing. And that's a perfect way to wrap up our episode. So thank you so much, Eromosele, for
Thank you.
geeking
Thank
out with
you.
me today. Y'all don't forget to subscribe and be sure to check out the show notes for additional resources and to connect with us and our guests on social media. Until next time,
Peace out and geek out.
Geeking Out is hosted and produced by me, Adriana Vilela. I also compose and perform the theme music on my trusty clarinet. Geeking Out is also produced by my daughter, Hannah Maxwell, who incidentally designed all of the cool graphics. Be sure to follow us on all the socials by going to bento.me/geekingout.